Well, I consider myself a lifelong learner. I love to learn. And because I love to learn, that causes me to continue to take classes and to read books about all different kinds of things. And I love to watch documentaries because of the things that I learn in nature shows and things like that. I think that all of us have this spiritual drive within us to grow. And that spiritual drive to grow into all that we can be, to grow into our greatest selves, to grow into all that we want to be in this life. I think that learning is a piece of that. And I think that it doesn't matter whether you're learning how to sew or to paint a picture or to fix a car or to do something on a computer or even traveling and all the things that we learn while we're traveling. I think that all of those things help us step into that expanded way of being, help us step into that fullness of who we are. And so the theme for this month that is put out by Centers for Spiritual Living, those themes, remember, are about the values and the principles that we stand on as an organization. And so the one for March is called Expanded Horizons, Spiritual Living Through Education and Continuous Improvement. And so I don't know if you know this, but Centers for Spiritual Living, we consider ourselves a teaching order. We actually consider ourselves a praying order and a teaching order, but we consider ourselves a teaching order. And so, yes, we absolutely encourage silence and meditation and sacred giving and journaling and those things, but really, if you notice, we are teaching. That's why we are continuously offering classes and workshops, because we are really a teaching order. Excuse me. And so that is one of our main focuses as an organization. And so the theme for this month from Centers for Spiritual Living says this. It says, we walk a path of awakening, growth, and spiritual deepening through classes, workshops, seminars, and spiritual practices that allow us to embrace education as a lifelong endeavor. We consistently welcome more and more of the divine nature to be realized within us and revealed through our relationships, our decisions, and our contributions to the world. That's what taking classes does for us. It allows us to realize more of that divine presence in our lives. It enables us to see the divine in ways that we might not see it because we aren't really looking through those eyes. It enables us to notice how that presence is expressing itself and active in our lives. We come to see that through the classes that we take. Classes give us tools to change our consciousness. It enables us to change our focus and our ideas and our beliefs about lack and change those to ideas of plenty. It allows us to change our consciousness and our experience from disharmony to harmony. It allows us to shift that consciousness from lack of peace to experiencing peace in our lives. It moves us from a place where we think that we are separate from that infinite presence and separate from our good to the realization that that presence is always right where we are, and therefore our good is at hand. That's what happens when we take classes. They change our consciousness. And so I wanted to read to you a story that I read this week that is about what has required and happens with a change of consciousness. And so it's about a man named John Deary who has a son with autism. And it goes like this. Like many parents with children of autism, John Deary worried about his son Andrew's future. Living in a world where most people with autism are overlooked in the workplace, Deary knew that he had to take action. And it would take a change in consciousness. It would take a change in attitude, in focus, in belief. That's the change in consciousness. In 2013, he and his other son, Tom, decided to open a car wash business with a purpose: to help Andrew and others like him have a chance in the world, to earn a paycheck and to build community. He says, I set out to help my son and others like him have a life. In just 3 short years, he went from Father of the Year to true visionary with a scalable business, Rising Tide Car Wash, growing by the day. He only employs at his car wash people with autism. He says, we moved from washing 40,000 cars a year, which we brought now to 160,000 cars a year. That's quadruple inside 3 years. You can't do that without great staff. The repetition involved in the work is actually perfect for those who are on the autism spectrum, who gravitate toward repetitive behavior. Their attitude is strong, he says, and that goes to the consumer, and nothing can beat that. Now, 4 miles down the road, he's opening a second car wash. It's under construction, and despite never putting a single ad out in a paper, he has had over 700 job applications. His efforts to help those with autism in his community started in Parkland, Florida community, but since then it has gone global. Through TED Talks, seminars, and even a testimony to the United Nations to areas not only uplifting autistic people, but shifting the way people view them and their capabilities. As for Andrew, he's a new man. He's motivated, his father says, and motivation is something Andrew never knew before this. But it took him changing his thinking in order to move forward and to do that. That change in consciousness. And so classes give us tools to change our consciousness, and therefore tools to bring greater good into our lives and greater good into the world. Classes also shift our realization of who we are. Like Carol's reading this morning, to realize that we are indeed one with that presence. That presence is always right where we are, and that we are a part of it. It changes that thinking. And so we are actually, I love this, I heard this recently, a teaching of resonance. Through our education, we resonate with those qualities and characteristics and attributes of the divine. Through our learning, we resonate with peace and with love and with plenty and with power and with wholeness, so that that can come into our lives. Because as we resonate, we become open and still and receptive, and that can come through. We allow then the love and the peace and the wholeness and the harmony and all of those characteristics to come into our lives through us. Every single time I teach class, it is amazing to hear the testimonies of what the students say about how much things change in their life. People always talk about having better relationships at work, that work is going better, having better relationships with neighbors, having more confidence, being more peaceful. Things shift always for people. And so classes change our consciousness. Science of mind classes change our thoughts and our perceptions and our beliefs. So in turn, we can have different experiences. And so Greg Braden, I've been listening to him this week also. And Greg Braden, if you don't know who he is, he's a best-selling author and an internationally renowned as a pioneer in bridging science and spirituality with the real world. And so he says this: scientific evidence now reveals that belief affects everything from the healing of our bodies to the atoms of reality itself. Scientists have shown that while we may think we're only watching and observing our world, in fact, it's impossible for us to simply, quote, watch anything. Whether our attention is focused on a quantum particle during a laboratory experiment or anything else, from the healing of the body to the success of our careers and relationships, we have expectations and beliefs about what we're watching. These inner experiences become part of what we're focused on. By watching, we become a part of what we're watching. As scientists continue to explore just what it means to be participators, New evidence points to an inescapable conclusion. We live in an interactive reality where we change the world around us by changing what is happening inside of us, by changing our thoughts and our feelings and our beliefs. This implication is clear. From the healing of disease and the length of our lives to the success of our careers and relationships, everything that we experience in life is directly related to what we believe. He talks about how science has discovered that there is this field that exists, and that it has existed since the Big Bang. And it's an energetic field that is permeated with intelligence, and it responds to us all of the time. It responds to our thoughts and to our feelings. So when we are happy and joyful, it responds to that. When we are crabby and irritated and judgmental, it responds to that. That is what we've been teaching in Science of Mind forever. The law, we call it the law, the mind of God responds to what's going on inside of us and brings us more of the same. And we repel the things from us that do not resonate with us. And so Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind textbook says, false mental causes are removed by a freshness of thought. That's what happens. It's a freshness of thought. He says, we have learned that there is only one substance out of which everything is made: cabbages and kings, hands and houses, money and men. Consequently, any wrong condition in the human body is made from exactly the same substance from which the most perfect form is created. The perfect and pure light of spirit dissipates and dispels every discordant thing. For those things which are not implanted by the divine spirit have no law to support them. That which is not the truth, with a capital T, has nothing to support it except our belief, except our thinking, but nothing in ultimate reality. So that means disharmony and discord and dis-ease are not part of ultimate reality. They are simply an effect because of a belief that we hold. And so in Science of Mind, we change our beliefs to the truth that there is one power and one presence and one life and one beingness, and that is perfect. That is harmonious. That is a law of order. That changes what's happening out here. That love intelligence is the only thing that exists. Whether you call it God or spirit or mind or the divine or Brahma or the field, it permeates everything, and it is ultimate reality. That is the core and essence of who we are. That is the core and essence of our life. And when we recognize that, we come into alignment with it, and then we vibrate with it. And then we bring more of that into our lives automatically. Life is a mirror to what it is that we believe and what it is that we think. And so I have had some focus lately going on about our child care for here, because we initially had 8 people sign up to be child care providers, and there's usually, that means people would serve once every 2 months, which seems to me to be perfect. And we have quite a few people who've decided they don't really want to do childcare, they want to be in church, and so we really only have 4 or 5 people, and that means people are having to do it every single month, which means they're out of church 1 out of 4 Sundays. And I don't like that. I don't want that to be happening. And so I've been praying with my prayer partner actually about the perfect solution unfolding itself. And you know we do visioning every single month, and that visioning is always asking what is the highest vision coming through and open to what that looks like. Well, I have, and we talked about the board meeting, maybe it's time to hire somebody. Well, Sana unexpectedly came up to me last Sunday and says, you know, I'm interviewing girls for childcare at my she has a daycare for a preschool. What would you think about hiring some of those girls to come do junior church? Oh, gee. So next Sunday, we are interviewing 4 teenagers who she says are so bright and have so much experience with kids and are so mature, and we are going to hire daycare providers and have one person sign up each week just to check in with them and to oversee and to see if there's anything that they need, and everybody gets to be in church every single Sunday. Is that awesome? I know that all of us have things in our lives that we'd like to change. Things that we don't like, things that aren't working in the way that we want them to. We all have those things. And I think the problem is threefold, why we get stuck in that problem. I think one is that we forget that our beliefs and our attitude and our focus and our feelings are cause to what's going on in our life. And so we stay focused on what isn't working, and we worry about it, and we are concerned about it, and we get depressed about it, and we get into all those negative kind of feelings about it because we forget that that is cause to what's going on. So we focus on how much we dislike our neighbor and how grumpy our neighbor is and all the terrible things that he does. And that just creates more of those kinds of things happening. But because what happens is when we're focused on how rotten that person is, we're like fanning that flame and keeping that flame alive and keep making it grow and become even more. But instead, if we take our attention and we focus on non-judgment, if we focus on compassion, if we focus on how grateful we are for all the times that we do get along, or that we get along with other neighbors, or grateful for whatever it is in our lives, if we focus on love as the power in this universe, if we focus on harmony as the law of this universe, and therefore the law of our lives, that shifts things miraculously. I don't know how, but that's exactly what happens. It shifts things that are happening. In Mahayana Buddhism, it says, reality exists only where we create a focus. What we focus on is what we bring to life. That is the flame that we fan. The second thing that keeps us stuck sometimes is we allow the world out there to tell us who we are. We allow our friends or our parents or society or our culture or whoever it is who we are. They tell us things like you are limited by your genetics, or you are limited by your upbringing, or you can't do that because you're a woman, or you can't do that because you're a man. You can't do that because you are too old, or you're too tall, or you're too fat, or you're too thin, or you're too whatever, fill in the blank. But we buy into those messages that we get out there in the world. In turn, in science of mind, we learn that we are incarnations of infinite potential, that we are out-picturings of that which is limitless, that infinite creativity of the universe lives within us as the essence of who we are. We learn that all of the qualities of the divine are within us. All of them express within us. They are simply awaiting our awakened thought to come into manifestation. The third thing that keeps us stuck is that we think the material world, what is already happening, is more powerful than consciousness. We think that this is written in cement and we can't change it. We think that it is more real. Ernest Holmes says, when our belief in God is greater than our belief in conditions, healing will occur. When our belief in harmony, when our belief in order, when our belief in love, when that is greater than our belief of what is happening in our lives, that's when things shift. And so the title of my talk today is, What Do You Know? Because what we know is what we get. What we create, what we believe, what we focus on creates our experience. And so when we believe that that infinite presence is closer than breath and nearer than hands and feet, and that it is infinite potential, that it is boundless good, that it is leading me and guiding me as infinite wisdom and direction, that is what changes things for us. Because then we are open to that. When we believe that that intelligence is expressing itself as our body, we open ourselves to that. We resonate then with that, and then those things that are already happening are transformed. That's how Jesus did his healing work. He knew that the presence of spirit was the only reality. It was more real than anything in this physical world. That's transformative consciousness. And I think in the United States, we are raised to believe that Jesus is the only one that did that, and that is absolutely not true. There have been so many people throughout history and still today who have healing practices and who do healing like that. I've been reading Yogananda's book, and he talks about that, about healing, talks about raising the dead. Joel Goldsmith that Carol read about, he healed thousands of people in a healing ministry. It is born out of a consciousness of oneness. That's transformative consciousness. That's what heals bodies and conditions and dis-ease and disharmony of all sorts. That is why we teach classes in Science of Mind. To realize and recognize and embody and know and to live that through our practice. That's why we teach classes to hone our skills. How do we remember that? Through doing affirmations and through doing spiritual mind treatment and through meditating on certain principles. We teach the skills of how to do that. That's why we teach spiritual mind treatment, because it changes our consciousness. It changes our beliefs. It helps us to get the realization and the reality that our spoken word has power when it's in alignment with truth. We can't speak a word and say, that tree is blue, and expect it to happen. But when we speak our word that is in alignment with truth, like peace is right here, right now, that's how we manifest it, when our word is in alignment with truth. Does that make sense to you? Do you get that? And so Ernest Holmes also says, if we believe that the Spirit incarnated in us can demonstrate, shall we be disturbed at what appears to contradict this? We need to know that the truth which we announce is superior to the condition we are to change. In other words, if we are speaking from the standpoint of the Spirit, there can be no opposition to it. If we are speaking the truth, there can be nothing to oppose it. He says, in such degree as we speak the truth, the Almighty has spoken. Because we've opened ourselves as a channel for the truth to come through. I love that. As we speak the truth, it's as if the Almighty has spoken through us. The Almighty has spoken through us because it's already true and it's already available. It's just waiting for us to line up our thinking with it. And so my invitation to you is to grow your consciousness through learning, through education, through reading, through workshops, through classes, through meditating on principles. Grow your consciousness and to use your life as your curriculum. When the things in your life show up and you don't like them, instead of saying, why me, poor me, and feeling sorry for yourself, ask yourself instead, what is this asking of me? What is this wanting me to know? What is this asking me to be? How is this inviting me to step into my greater self? How is this asking me to step into a greater life? What is seeking to be expressed through me in a greater way than I have allowed or embodied before? Live in that question, and then you will absolutely be stepping into that expanded sense of life and your expanded self. And to remember that always life is for you. Life is for your flourishing, and life is for your growth, and life is for your good. Remember also that you are on an eternal path of growing and of expansion and of unfolding. And whatever's going on in your life is a part of that. It's on purpose, not as a punishment, as a gift for you to open up to something greater. And embrace that deep satisfaction of learning, of growing, of awakening. And like that statement said, what this theme is about, be open to receiving and expressing and revealing and realizing more and more and more of the divine in your life, every day, all the time. And so blessings to you on this path of growth and unfolding and awakening to your own spirit and the magnificence of the divine that is always right where you are. Blessings to all of you. And so I invite you to join me in a spiritual mind treatment. What a blessing it is to answer this call to prayer. What a blessing it is to recognize that infinite presence that is always closer than breath and nearer than hands and feet. That presence that fills everything with its beingness, that permeates everything. For I recognize that everything in this universe is the outpicturing of that one. Every bird and every tree and every plant and every animal and every person, every thought is this divine presence unfolding itself in the most magnificent way. And so today we recognize that and we lean into that. We open ourselves and allow that presence to download itself in our minds and in our hearts and in our thinking. We open ourselves to that download of love and of infinite potential and of boundless good. We open ourselves to that inflow of peace and prosperity and abundance and good of every sort. We open ourselves to harmony and to order, which expresses itself as health and as wholeness. Recognizing that in all we do, that we are walking in this presence and that we are filled with this presence, that it beats our hearts and it breathes our lungs and it guides us and it directs us and it unfolds itself through us as us. And so what a blessing it is to be alive on this planet today, expressing ourselves in all that we are. All our creativity, all of our uniqueness, all of our gifts, all of our beauty. That yes, indeed, we are here giving way to that presence. What a blessing it is to be aware of that. And so I do indeed know that today, right now, that infinite one is pouring itself out as a blessing that is so big we could not possibly contain it. And so it is with a grateful heart that I give thanks for this, that I give thanks for this glorious life, that I give thanks for this spiritual path that we are each walking, that I give thanks for this realization and this embodying of this one presence, realizing it in our lives. And so I release this prayer into that perfect law of action, knowing that it is done as it is spoken, and that it is done now because it is the truth, and we are lining ourselves up with that. And so I release this prayer, and I let it be, and so it is.